All right, so get this. Today we're going deep on something most people probably find, well, a little dry.
Oh, what's that?
Terms of service.
Oh, okay. I see where this is going.
But hold on. These aren't just any terms of service. We're talking about DeepSeek. And, they're doing some seriously cool stuff with AI.
Yeah, DeepSeek's really on the leading edge, especially with generative AI. I mean, their terms are practically a crystal ball, showing us how we'll be using this tech in the future.
Exactly. So let's break it down. First off, for anyone who might not be familiar, what exactly is DeepSeek? What do they do?
So DeepSeek, they're basically a platform company. They offer a whole bunch of products and services.
Okay.
And the thing is, all of them, every single one, is built on generative AI. We're talking powerful algorithms, like seriously powerful. Specifically, they use these things called large language models.
Large language models. Catchy name.
Yeah, well, the name is pretty descriptive, actually. They're based on neural networks. So picture a huge network, like a brain, but digital.
Okay, I'm picturing it. Lots of connections, processing info.
You got it. And these nodes, they learn. They sift through mountains of data, picking up patterns, figuring out how things relate, words, ideas, structures, you name it.
So how do they teach these models to do all that? I mean, where does all that data even come from?
Good question. DeepSeek trains their models in 2 stages. First, they do this massive self-supervised learning thing.
Okay.
Basically, the model teaches itself, just gobbles up tons of data and figures out all the relationships. Then they do targeted optimization.
So like fine-tuning.
Yeah, exactly. They train it for specific tasks, like writing different kinds of text, maybe generating code in a certain language.
Interesting. So where does all this data come from?
Well, they've got websites, apps, and they even have tools for developers,
Yeah.
SDKs, APIs, the whole works.
Yeah.
All those interactions, all of them generate data that can be used to make those models even better. Plus, they've got this feedback loop built in. Users can like or dislike the output, which helps refine things even more.
So users are actually helping shape the AI as it evolves.
Absolutely. It's a collaborative process in a way. But before you can even start playing with the AI, you need an account, right?
Right, of course, yeah.
Makes sense. In DeepSeek, they're really big on making sure you give them accurate info when you sign up. And they remind you that you're responsible for anything that happens under your account.
Yeah, that's standard stuff, but it's probably worth repeating, especially with AI, right? I mean, the stakes are pretty high if things go wrong.
Absolutely. It's easy to overlook the basics when you get caught up in all the shiny new tech. Speaking of potential problems, DeepSeek's terms also lay down the law about what you can and can't do with their AI. What are some of the big no-nos they have in there?
Well, they have a pretty clear list of things you absolutely cannot generate. Hate speech, anything discriminatory or harmful, illegal stuff, sexually explicit content, all strictly off limits. They also make it super clear that whatever the AI spits out, it's not professional advice.
Right, it's a tool, not a replacement for, actual human judgment and expertise.
Makes total sense. It's
Yeah.
like they're drawing a line in the sand.
Yeah, between responsible use and, going down a potentially dangerous path.
So how do they actually enforce these rules? It's not like they can personally check every single thing their users generate.
That's actually addressed right in their terms. They talk about using technical measures.
Like what?
Stuff like risk filtering and checking against databases of illegal content. So they're proactively monitoring and moderating stuff. It shows that even though the AI is super advanced, there's still a human element making sure it's used the right way, minimizing potential risks.
So it's not just a set it and forget it situation. DeepSeek is actively involved.
Oh, absolutely. But this brings up a really interesting question about ownership. I mean, who owns what when it comes to all this AI-generated content? Who owns the data you put in? Who owns what the AI creates? Where does DeepSeek fit in?
Yeah, that's a big one.
It gets complicated, but DeepSeek is very clear. Users own their input data. Whatever you feed into the system, it's still yours.
Okay, that's good to know. But what about the stuff the AI creates based on my input? Who owns that?
Here's where DeepSeek does something kind of unusual. They actually assign the rights to the AI output to the user, too.
Hold on, so if I use their AI to write a song or create a design, I own the copyright. That doesn't seem right. Don't they have some claim since it was their tech that generated it?
It is surprising, and it really makes you think about creativity and ownership in the age of AI, right? But legally speaking, DeepSeek's position is clear. The output is yours to do with as you please. They're giving you a super powerful tool, but they're not claiming any ownership over what you make with it.
Wow, that's a huge difference. It really challenges how we think about authorship. But it also opens up so many possibilities for using AI, both creatively and commercially.
Hmm.
This is definitely something we need to explore further. But first, we need to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be looking at how DeepSeek handles things like liability, data privacy, and what their terms mean for the future of how we interact with AI. Okay, so we've talked about how DeepSeek gives users ownership of both their input data and the output their AI generates.
Exactly.
But that kind of leads us to a whole other set of questions,
Oh, yeah.
like about liability. What if the AI, I don't know, what if it creates something inaccurate or misleading, maybe even straight up harmful? Who's on the hook for that?
You're right, that's a huge concern. And DeepSeek actually addresses it head on in their terms. They acknowledge, that AI is still under development. There's no guarantee it's going to be perfect every time.
So they're saying, hey, we're giving you these powerful tools, but use them carefully. Don't take everything the AI says is gospel.
Yeah, pretty much. They clearly state that their services are provided as is.
As is.
And they disclaim warranties for the accuracy, the reliability, and the security of the outputs.
Okay, so they're not making any promises.
Right. And they also limit their liability for incidental, consequential, or indirect damages.
Which is pretty standard for tech companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it does feel different when you're dealing with AI that can create content on its own. It's like they're really putting the responsibility on the user.
You're picking up on something important there, and it's a theme that runs throughout their terms. They go beyond just disclaimers. They actually outline specific actions they can take if users don't follow the rules.
Like what kind of actions?
Well, it can range from, warnings to restricting some of your account functions, suspending your usage, or even completely shutting down your account.
So they're serious about enforcement.
Oh, yeah, they mean business. They even say they'll work with law enforcement if there are violations that involve illegal activities. Plus, they can remove any content that breaks their terms, even if it's not technically against the law.
So, like if it's offensive or promotes harmful stereotypes, and if it's not illegal.
Exactly. And that brings us to the whole debate about censorship and freedom of expression in this age of AI. It's a tough balancing act.
It really is. On one side, you want to stop the spread of harmful stuff, but you also don't want to shut down creativity or limit people's right to express themselves. It makes you wonder, who gets to decide what's over the line? Is it like a team of moderators at DeepSeek? Or are they using AI to flag the iffy content?
Well, they don't really spell out their process in detail in the terms. It's probably a mix of human review and some automated systems.
I can only imagine how tricky it is to build an AI that understands all the nuances of human language, like what's offensive or appropriate. That's a tough one.
It is. It is. And it's something companies like DeepSeek are working on. It's only going to become more important as AI becomes a bigger part of our lives.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about data privacy. We talked about users owning their input data.
Right.
But DeepSeek also talks about using that data and the outputs to improve their services.
They do.
So how do they walk that line between improving their services and keeping user info private?
Well, they emphasize that anytime they use data, they're doing it with strict de-identification and encryption to protect privacy.
De-identification meaning they strip away anything that could identify a specific person.
Exactly.
And encryption, well, that's basically scrambling the data so you need a key to read it, right?
Right. It's like putting the data in a lockbox. So they're taking steps to make sure the data can't be traced back to you.
Which is good. But even with all those precautions, it still makes you think about unintended consequences.
Absolutely. AI is still a young field. We're really just starting to grasp what it means to collect, store, and use all this data in the long run. DeepSeek's terms give us a framework to think about it, but they don't have all the answers.
And this isn't just a DeepSeek thing, right? This is something the entire tech industry and beyond needs to be talking about.
You got it. It's a societal issue, not just a technological one.
Okay, let's go back to intellectual property for a second. DeepSeek says users have the rights to the stuff the AI generates.
That's right.
But they also say they own all the rights to their platform and technology.
Which is standard.
So where's the line?
Yeah.
Could a user take that AI-generated content and use it to, I don't know, create a competing platform?
That's a really interesting question, and it gets right to the heart of what intellectual property even means with AI in the picture. DeepSeek's terms say you can't use their trademarks or logos without permission.
Okay, that makes sense.
But they don't specifically address the scenario you're talking about. It'll be interesting to see how those legal lines get drawn as AI keeps getting more advanced.
It almost feels like we need a whole new set of laws just to deal with all the unique challenges AI brings up.
You might be right. The laws we have now were written before anyone could imagine something like generative AI.
And we've barely scratched the surface of what AI can do. Who knows what the legal landscape will look like in a few years?
It's a rapidly evolving field, both technologically and legally.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, but there's one more piece of DeepSeek's terms we need to talk about. Export control and sanctions.
Right, right. That might seem like a niche topic,
It does.
but it's super important when you're talking about AI.
How so?
Well, AI has the potential to be used for a lot of different things, some of which could have, national security implications.
You mean things like military applications or surveillance technologies?
Exactly. AI technologies are often dual use. They can be used for civilian purposes and military purposes. So it's important to have regulations in place, make sure they don't fall into the wrong hands.
That's scary to think about. So what does DeepSeek say about all this in their terms?
They state very clearly that users are responsible for complying with all applicable export control and sanctions laws when using their services.
So no using DeepSeek's AI to develop or export tech that's banned by international regulations.
Exactly. It's like they're saying, hey, we're providing the tools, but it's on you to make sure you're using them legally and ethically.
It's a good reminder that even in the digital world, actions have consequences. And with AI, those consequences could be huge.
Absolutely. It's not just about individual users. Governments and organizations all over the world are trying to figure out how to regulate AI, how to prevent it from being misused.
It's a global issue.
For sure, it requires international cooperation, and something we need to keep an eye on as AI keeps getting more powerful.
This whole conversation has been really eye-opening. DeepSeek's terms are way more than just legal mumbo-jumbo. They really get you thinking about the complex and evolving relationship between humans and AI.
Couldn't agree more.
We've talked about user responsibility, data privacy, the ethics of AI-generated content.
A lot to unpack.
We've only scratched the surface. But I think this has been a good starting point to understand the key issues as we all move further into the world of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great exploring all this with you.
Same here. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Hopefully it's given you some things to think about as you navigate this ever-changing world of AI. So we're back. And, after diving deep into DeepSeek's terms of use, it's clear these things are more than just legalese.
Oh, for sure.
They really make you think about some big questions, about the future of AI.
Yeah, definitely. DeepSeek's take on all of this is, well, it's like a roadmap, almost. It shows us how we might navigate this whole human-AI relationship thing, especially as generative AI keeps getting, smarter and more integrated into our lives.
One thing that really stood out to me was how much they emphasize user responsibility. It's like DeepSeek is putting a lot of faith in users to use their AI tools in a way that's ethical.
Right. And it is interesting. On the one hand, they're giving users this incredible power to create. But at the same time, they're making it clear that power comes with responsibility. They're not ignoring the risks, but they're also not trying to stifle innovation by being overly restrictive.
It's a tough balance to strike. And it brings up a fascinating question. How will we as a society adapt to a world where AI can make stuff that's basically indistinguishable from human-created content?
Yeah, that's a big challenge. As AI gets more sophisticated, it's going to be harder and harder to tell what's made by a human and what's made by a machine. DeepSeek requiring users to label AI-generated output, that's a step in the right direction.
But it's probably just the start of a much bigger conversation, right?
Yeah.
About transparency and accountability. That idea of transparency, it really hits home. It's not just about plagiarism or giving credit. It's about being able to make smart choices about the info we consume and the tools we use.
Exactly.
If you don't know if something was created by a person or an AI, how can you judge its credibility or spot any biases it might have?
Exactly. We tend to approach things created by humans with certain assumptions.
Right.
We know people have their own viewpoints, their own biases, But with AI-generated content, it's different. As those lines blur, it's going to be critical to develop, critical thinking skills, media literacy even.
Almost like we need a whole new set of digital literacy skills just for dealing with AI. We need to understand how these systems work, what they can and can't do, and how to evaluate what they produce.
Yeah, I like that. It's not about being afraid of AI or rejecting it. It's about approaching it with a critical eye, understanding both its potential and its limitations.
And, I think DeepSeek's terms, they actually encourage that. Even with all the legal stuff, they're not just laying down the law. They're making us think about the big picture. How do we want to shape our relationship with AI as it becomes well, more and more a part of our lives.
Totally agree. These terms are a snapshot of where we are right now, but they also hint at a future where AI is, well, it's going to be a huge force, for good or bad. And it's really up to us to figure out how to use that power responsibly.
It's daunting, but exciting too.
Hmm.
And I think by starting these conversations, DeepSeek's terms are part of that process.
Definitely. Technology doesn't just exist on its own. It's shaped by human choices, by our values. And as we go deeper into this age of AI, it's more important than ever to talk about how we want to develop and use these powerful tools.
So here we are, at the end of our deep dive into DeepSeek's terms of use. Who knew they'd be so, well, interesting?
It's been fascinating.
We've covered user responsibility, data ownership, the ethics of AI content.
We've barely scratched the surface.
Right, it's a conversation that's just starting. But at least now we have a better idea of what's at stake as we move forward into this world of AI.
It's been a pleasure discussing all of this with you.
Same here. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us. We hope this has given you some things to think about as you navigate the ever-changing landscape of AI.